On this edition of Inside Education, we go one-on-one with the Nevada Superintendent of Public Instruction and ask, what will the next school year look like? Then meet the Clark County School District's 6 new Educators of the Year. They were surprised with the honor virtually, of course. Hear what it's like to be a first-year teacher during a global pandemic. Inside Education starts right now. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Inside Education. I'm your host, Mitch Truswell. Nevada Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jhone Ebert, was on the job for about a year before COVID-19 hit and the world changed. The past few months have made us all very familiar with terms like distance learning as schools across the country and the state have closed their physical doors. Well, now the Nevada Department of Education is creating what it calls a path forward. Included in the Path Forward plan are steps to navigate and prepare for a new school year, including the formation of a reopening of schools committee. We'll have more on that in a minute. Superintendent Ebert is responsible for all the school districts in the state, but she is very familiar with Southern Nevada, having spent about 25 years working in the Clark County School District. We had a chance to catch up with her to talk about what the new school year could look like and more. Superintendent of Public Instruction for the Nevada Department of Education, Jhone Ebert, welcome to Inside Education.
Thank you, Mitch, for having me today. I'm excited to be here remotely.
Let's get started. Obviously, with distance learning now being the norm, I know a lot of parents, students, teachers, administrators, everybody's looking to the future. It's like, okay, so we're handling it right now. What's the upcoming school year going to look like? How do you respond to that?
Well, we know that it's going to look differently, that's for sure. And we have had a lot of conversations. I'm blessed, the 17 superintendents across the state, as well as the Public Charter School Authority, we meet at least once a week, if not more, to talk exactly about the question that you've asked and the question that is going on nationally as well. You know, what is school going to look like in the fall? How are we going to ensure our children are safe, that they're learning in an environment that is productive, and that their social emotional needs and mental health needs are met as well, given the current environment. So there's a lot of moving parts. We're in a pandemic and working diligently with the superintendents, with communities to make sure that what the future looks like, not just the fall, but we know that it's going to be a very long time before a vaccine is here. And so as we continue to learn more information and build on the talent that currently exists within our state, that answer is I always like to say, okay, it's 10 a.m. or whatever time it is on the day, because we know that by learning more information and building, it may shift from 10 a.m. to noon. You may learn new information that builds a better school path forward.
Right.
In the work that we're all doing.
As we are today, right here, and I realize this may change in the future, what is your biggest challenge or difficulty at this time in terms of getting ready for next year, or the problem you need to overcome? What would that be?
So health and safety is at top of mind for everyone in this work, whether it's the physical or mental. So first and foremost, just making sure that we're having contact with our families, with our students, that they know that their educators are there for them. Last week was Teacher Appreciation Week, and hearing the voices of students of how much they appreciate what their teachers are doing, what their administrators are doing, what the support staff, everyone, to make sure that students have food. We moved into this environment so quickly that making sure that 65% of our students that we serve on a daily basis still had access to food during this time. When you move beyond the basic needs that we all need, and think about the learning environment, having connectivity, having access to devices so that they can connect and have a distance learning environment and experience has been a huge shift. The school districts worked very hard to make sure that children had devices, but even if they had devices, the connectivity itself has become a barrier. We're lucky that we have, through federal funds, actually 145 buses in our state that are Wi-Fi enabled. Yeah. So those buses immediately were deployed out into areas. Now, what transpired after that is obviously making sure that our children who are excited now to see each other, that they still kept the proper social distancing. But we continue to work with the FCC to now shift how we're funded through E-rate. School districts have received funding for a very long time to Wi-Fi enabled school buildings, school buses, as we just spoke to, and then also libraries. What we need to have now nationally is a shift from the school location building itself, because now schooling is happening in homes.
Right.
And how do we expand that connectivity in our homes? We need to think differently at the federal level to make sure that we have consistent access for our families into their homes.
I know one of the things that happened just pretty recently, you created the School Reopening Committee. What is it that this committee, you hope to get from this committee? What's their purpose?
So this is one of what I think will have several committees. Their purpose is exactly that, the health and safety. So we have medical experts from the North and the South on the committee. We also have emergency management folks. Ask the superintendents who would like to serve on the committee. Some of the superintendents actually volunteered themselves, and others volunteered their staff. They're experts in emergency management. So that committee had their first meeting on May 1st, okay. And they're continuing to do their work and follow what guidelines are being published by the CDC and other health experts on what and when students and teachers can enter the building, what that would look like.
Will they provide to you kind of a list of recommendations, and when do you expect to get that? Is there a deadline out there?
So their meeting, their next meeting is I believe next week. And they're doing research. They will have recommendation as we track. They'll build out. We don't have a specific deadline for them to have, a plan, because these will be guidelines based on other medical things that we learn here. So we're taking not only the federal information health-wise, but what we know about how we've been moving in Nevada. Some of our counties still do not have any cases, tested cases of COVID. Right. And so what transpires in that county would be different than what transpires in other counties where we've had, hundreds of people that have been identified. So they're going to set out the guidelines. But what's important is that from that information, the local school districts will take it and work with their communities and massage it and works what's best, because context matters, right? Right. A Clark County school district is much different than Esmeralda, which has 83 students.
Right. The state's smallest school district, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious about, at the point where students are going back to school, I was thinking of just how different that's going to be in terms of, even riding, the schools that have school buses. If we're still keeping with the 6 feet of distance, even riding the school bus where kids are normally 2 to a seat, that has to change. Even in the classroom where there are, tables sometimes with 4 kids, preschool, small tables, preschool, there are 4 there, or having the ability to, move desks further away within the classroom. I mean, these are really kind of far-reaching decisions in terms of just basic space within a school, how big the classrooms, how many students can be in a classroom. This is really a far-reaching, some of these decisions. I understand what you're kind of dealing with.
So we look at it as an opportunity to think differently. It is a huge shift when we think about how the shift from the tragedy of 9/11 shifted how we now travel in, or excuse me, we're not traveling in airports now either. But how, technology was involved, and the whole, my family used to walk out with me to go take me, when I was going off on a trip.
Right.
And now, I mean, that's been unheard of for a very long time. And so when we think about this history, where it's going to take us, where we as Nevadans are going to think differently about how we educate our children, but about our expectations. We're not going to lower expectations about what we expect for our children to know and be able to do. But our educators, they're the ones that truly know our children best. And so how are we going to span this time frame that we're in right now and make that shift will be based on, you talked about the committee, based on the recommendations of the Committee for Health and Safety, but those decisions will happen locally. And I've heard things from, ideas, they're concepts, and I think that everyone should weigh in, whether half the children go to school on Monday and Tuesday and the other half go on Wednesday, Thursday.
Right.
And then you have a day where, children that need additional assistance come in on a Friday. And also, start and end times, allowing children that do succeed and enjoy learning at a distance, especially at the secondary, that we really look at competency-based and where children, students can opt into, and that's what they're at Vegas PBS and the Nevada Learning Academy. We've had hundreds of children opt into grades 6 through 12, a full-time environment. And so that choice being made available for parents and supporting them in a learning environment at home is critical.
Okay. Well, we're out of time, but I just want to say that we so appreciate you making time for us to talk about some of these issues. I know there's much more out there, but we do appreciate you updating us, and we will look to speak with you at a later date on Inside Education. Thanks again, Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jhone Ebert.
Thank you, Mitch.
Well, being a new teacher can be hard enough. Now imagine your first year teaching was this year. The Clark County School District recently named 6 New Educators of the Year. Those chosen were surprised during weekly virtual staff meetings like this one.
Kenneth Brown, can you put yourself off of mute and turn your video on? There you are. Hi. Good morning. Hi, Kenneth. How are you?
Doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. It's great to see you virtually. So congratulations to you, Kenneth. We couldn't be more proud.
Wow.
So, congratulations, Ken. Hey, before I pass the mic to you, we had a couple other people that wanted to say things, but I'm going to have you do a favor for me. Can you walk out to your balcony?
My balcony?
Yeah, your balcony. You're one of the lucky ones that have a view. Pretty cool. So head on out.
Now that's a surprise. We caught up with Kenneth and some of the other awardees. Well, I want to say welcome to all of you. There are actually 6 new Educators of the Year, one of which, Alejandra Linares Sierra, was not able to join us, unfortunately, but I have the other 5 here. Congratulations to all of you. Has it sunk in yet? No. We have a lot of no's. Okay, so we're going to just get started. Ellie, I'm going to start with you. Ellie Edgar, Pittman Elementary School. You are the best new educator of the year in the category grades 3 through 5. I'm kind of curious, what was it about teaching that encouraged you to say, you know what, I'm going to do that?
Yeah, so I've always been someone who loved reading. I loved learning. My mom used to tease me all the time that I was going to be in school for the rest of my life. So I guess I found a way to do that by, passing on that love of learning to my students.
That's right. And I was going to, you have kind of an interesting background. Before being a teacher, I know you did several things, but one of which kind of stuck out. You were involved in primate care, working with a nonprofit, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Is there any overlap on what you did with primates, working with students? Is there a little overlap there as far as, caretaking and comforting and that sort of thing, or no?
Oh yeah, you'd be surprised. That job working with primates, you have to find a way to communicate with them without actually being able to speak. So it taught me a lot of different things. I mean, patience, attention to detail, all those little things. Being able to pay attention to a lot of things happening at one time, multitasking, So it definitely, there's some crossover.
I bet, I can imagine. Okay. Brian Milburn, Tobler Elementary School. You are the new educator of the year in the special education category. Congratulations to you. I'm curious, you have done a couple of different things. You've been a substitute prior to becoming a teacher. And before that, you sold cars. What was it about education that said, you know what, I would like to become a teacher?
That's tough. I wanted to be a teacher since I was a kid, but I just never found it to be, you weren't making enough money. And so I always thought that as a downfall. And so I just never attempted it. And then working long hours, selling cars, I was just like, my wife said, hey, why don't you try teaching? You wanted to do that. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm going to do it. And I just ended up falling in love teaching kids and just having a smile on my face every day and getting to see the kids' smiles too.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, wonderful. Emily Anderson with Cashman Middle School. You are the new educator of the year for middle school students. I'm curious, had you had a lot of experience working with middle school students before you became a teacher?
Yeah, so I worked at a summer camp in college and I did something called College Mentors for Kids. I also substitute taught for 3 different school districts, one being Clark County. So I did have experience with middle school and high school students before finally teaching, yeah.
Were there specific things that kind of encouraged you in this direction? I mean, there's been a teacher shortage for so long. People don't go into it. Many people don't, but I'm curious, what attracted you?
I've wanted to be a teacher since I was probably 5 years old and first stepped into my kindergarten classroom. I've had a lot of teachers who have inspired me throughout the years, and I just love math so much, and I just never wanted to leave school. So,
all right. Let's move on to Kenneth Brown, the second, Sierra Vista High School. You're the new educator of the year for high schools. And I'm curious, Kenneth, you've done you were honest, you've done a lot of different things in the past outside of education. What got you to move into not only education, but also the high school level?
2 things. One, watching my wife actually go through grad school at UNLV, where I'm actually still an ARL student right now, getting my master's. So I watched her go through it, and seeing how, she actually grew and changed through the program. I kind of saw it and felt amazed by her in the back of my mind, but just kind of put it away. At the time I was working in casinos when we started dating, but after a while, I actually went to work at this small company, and one of my job responsibilities was actually teaching J1 interns how to do my job. And I was very nervous about it. I didn't think I'd be very good at it, but after I got my first intern, and she was from Russia, and just watching her and the pride that I took in her learning how to do my job and just being hands off after just seeing her learn how to do all these things, something immediately clicked, and it was just like, I think I could do this. I think I want to do this. I know I don't want to do what I've been doing for the rest of my
Right.
life. I want to make a difference.
Right.
And this immediately popped in as the way I could do it. So that's what pushed me toward it.
And you also, I obviously I don't have experience as a teacher, but I would think probably it might be easier to work with young students. You jumped right into high school. Is it what you expected working with high school students?
No, it's not. I didn't really have any expectations.
Okay.
I remembered what high school was like for me. I am a CCSD graduate. I'm a Rancho High School class of 2004. So a lot of my teachers that I had during the time, they had a way with relating to kids, because it seemed to me that they really remembered what it was like to be their age and going through what they're going through. And for me, it's closer to that age for me than it was as a child. So, when I speak, and I subbed as well. So when I got to sub at the elementary school level and the middle school level, it was great, but it was a little different with high schoolers, because you could talk to them a little bit more and kind of explain to them more about what it is that they're supposed to expect from the world,
Got it. Okay, got it. Brittany, Virgin Valley High School, you are the new educator of the year, and you are a specialist. Can you help explain what does a specialist do and provide in kind of the educational environment?
I'm the high school band teacher at Virgin Valley. So I teach all different types of bands, marching band, intermediate band, advanced band, color guard, percussion, jazz band. So I just kind of provide another enrichment level of teaching and education, and a good way for students to be able to express themselves through the arts, through schooling as well.
Did you always know that you kind of be in this position, or is this kind of out of your couple of years ago, you never thought you'd do it?
Yeah, I actually went to college for fashion merchandising at first, and I was doing marching band at my university. I'm from Ohio originally, and then just decided, like, one day, like, I was teaching some drumline for some kids in a little town in Ohio, and realized that that's where I needed to be, and just switched immediately and auditioned to go into music school. And 4 years later, I finished and got a job in Clark County at Virgin Valley, and this is where I am.
There you go. I'm going to reverse the order, and we're going to go a little bit quicker here. What's been the most challenging? I know none of you ever expected that you'd be doing distance learning, schools would be closed, the world would have changed. Brittany, what's been most challenging in this kind of current environment teaching?
For specials, it's really challenging, especially for music education. We do a lot of ensemble playing, and it's a very social class and activity.
Right.
So we're missing that aspect a little bit, but it just makes me have to be a little more creative and come up with more things that still inspire and motivate them to do assignments and learn through music.
Okay. Kenneth, how about you? What's been most challenging in the age of COVID-19?
Just not getting to see my kids every day. I mean, these are, outstanding young men and women, and they change so quickly, Mitch, and it's like a daily thing. So I miss my kids. I miss the classroom. I miss the space that we share. And that's pretty much the main thing.
Okay. Emily from Cashman Middle School, how about you? What's most challenging?
I think the hardest thing for me is I teach all 8th graders, and I had so much planned for them for the end of this school year that we're now not going to be able to do. And I didn't realize that on that Friday was going to be my last day with them. So that has been difficult, and not being able to see their faces every day.
Brian Milburn with Tobler Elementary, most challenging thing in this COVID pandemic?
Yeah, same as everybody else said. It's tough not getting to see your kids. And I know that first week we didn't really know what we were going to be doing and when we were going to go back to school. It was a little depressing, because you're like, man, I just want to high five my kids, give them a fist bump one last time, and you can't. So that's definitely the most challenging for me. And then just not being able to see my kids grow from where they were right before we left.
Right. Ellie, how about you?
Yeah, just building off of what everyone else has already said, you build these connections with your students. And so it's hard to feel like you're reaching all of them virtually. So I think just not being able to be with them when they're telling you, we miss our classroom, we want to go back. And so you kind of have to be their support system, the best you can be, but definitely just not being able to finish with them.
Okay. I'm just going to throw this out before we go because we're out of time, unfortunately. Any of you, feel free to speak up. Any of you have any concerns about what school is going to look like next year, or are you concerned about the unknowns of not knowing what school is going to look like next year? Anyone?
So I think,
Go for it.
just one thing is I think that kind of the social emotional learning is going to have to be hit really hard. You know, a lot of kids have been through things during this time that are going to be hard, and they're going to be coming in next year. You know, hopefully we get to go back, and it's going to have been about 6 months since they've even been in a classroom.
Right. Anyone else? Kenneth, did you want to say something before we go?
Yeah. Class sizes is a huge thing. Bulk of mine have been between 38, maybe even 40 kids. So how are they going to do this as far as the distance, you know, the separation, having the kids move throughout the school campus and the hallways and everything? So there's going to be a lot of that, but the job will remain the same. We will have to do exactly what it is we've got to do to reach those kids. Other than that, the rest we'll figure out as we go along.
Right. Anyone else?
I just worry a little bit that with music and marching band and concerts and performing, our activity and what we do as far as music education is going to change drastically. So we just have a lot of planning and figuring out to do in order to make sure the kids still get a lot out of it. So I look forward to the future, and I'm hopeful about it. So I'm hoping we can come together and figure it out.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of there as well, trying to be hopeful. Just we'll deal with it once we know what we're dealing with. I want to thank all of you. I want to congratulate all of you on winning this award, each of you in your own category. And again, Alejandra Lanera Sierra from Long Elementary School, who could not be with us today. Appreciate your time, all of you. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Inside Education. A reminder, you can catch this episode and past episodes on the Vegas PBS website or YouTube page. We'll see you in 2 weeks.